You're here. Morning. Hello. I know, man. It's 11 a.m. Eastern. It's 8 a.m. my time. It's this global world we live in here. Really stoked that you're able to come in and join us though today.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late, man. I was like 11 a.m. club. All right, cool. In my mind, it's just 11 a.m.
Listen, brother. I need the 8 a.m. hat
Sorry,
because
I
no,
feel
come
so
on, don't.
dumb.
No, not at all. I'm just glad that we got a chance to chat. I mean, it has been a while. It has
It has
been
been
a
a while.
while since we've chatted,
Yeah.
and I mean, I was sort of checking in on this. 5 years of art
Five.
blocks. 5 years of art blocks. Um, I don't. There's so many places I'd love to go with this conversation, but I think the place to start for me really is you kind of launched generative art on chain, and it was just felt like this new thing. It felt like this thing that was taking advantage of the blockchain, like this technology that was so disruptive, and adding this sort of cultural and creative layer that felt very native to it. And it was sort of this unique mechanism that I think a lot of us in crypto in the early days were really infatuated with. Um, and, it had the same sort of resonance with me as discovering Ethereum in the first place, right? This idea of this global database and blockchain that could replace all the financial rails, create whole new types of organizations, assets, opportunities. And you kind of were building on top of that. And in the past couple of years, it feels like we've kind of strayed away from that a little bit. Maybe in one lens here, it's just the TradFi world is just using these as a new backend. And is that cool? Yes, and maybe not as cool as I would think it is. And then on the other side is just like speculation games, capital rotation games. Let's sort of run at it. So I would just love your take on where we are today and how you feel about it.
Man. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, the back end part is interesting in that it might lead to more adoption, which is literally my number one priority, right? Is to try to find ways to make what we're doing interesting and compelling to a broader audience. And it's really hard. And I've, I feel like I've failed at doing that, even though, I mean, doing it to the scale that I'd like to
Sure.
do it. We've certainly seen, institutional adoption for the art that's happening in our ecosystem. And I think that's really important. But, it's still kind of a dark rabbit hole for people to go down. It's still scary. It's still weird. And, back in 2000, I guess 17, 18, when I was thinking about art blocks, I'd been in crypto not that long. I mean, I think now how green I was in
Yeah.
2017 because I started collecting, Bitcoin, I guess, at the very end of 2016, and but I was like excited about this technology, and then punks came out, and I was like, holy crap, like we can use this for art. This is amazing. But then I'd seen a lot of, what I call it like square peg round hole use cases for this technology. And man, people made a lot of money on square peg round hole use cases for the technology, and that didn't, I don't know, I wasn't excited about that. Like I did, like I was like, no, like this technology is actually going to change the world, and it feels revolutionary, it feels very clean. But you also had a huge barrier to entry to understand. We didn't have MetaMask back then. We didn't really have like we had to sync our wallet to like do a transaction. And to me, someone that had been making generative art for a long time, someone that was really into crypto, really into Ethereum, especially once I discovered it, it just kind of hit. Like there was this really wonderful opportunity to create. I would say this in like the old. First, it was Slack, and then it was Discord, because I don't know if you were around back then, but everybody was on Slack first, and then everything kind of migrated over to Discord. And I would just chat with people and say, look, like there's got to be more round peg round hole use cases for this, and I made it my mission to create something that was round peg round hole. And when I started kind of realizing this opportunity to store entire blockchain, entire algorithms on chain, and have it generate images at any resolution, not based on a IPFS hash, at a specific resolution, but being able to literally use the blockchain to generate something at any resolution, making it more likely to look good in the future, being able to generate things at the time of minting. All of this kind of came together, and I was like, I still to this day believe that what we did with art blocks was one of the first truly like native uses of the blockchain. And it's in a perfect form. It's about as clean as you can get it. And as the art blocks team has continued to innovate on preservation stuff. We have more and more stuff on chain. We have kind of decentralized renderers to allow us to be able to pull any art blocks project without, like, it feels more and more compelling what we're doing. However, you still have that barrier of entry to understand all this. And the reality is that in the end, people don't care. They don't care about all the tech. They just want the art to work, and if people using it as a back end brings another million eyes to what we're doing, hell yeah. Eventually, if it's a million, it'll be a billion, and maybe the whole world is using it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I hold that as true as well. I think like rising tide lifts all boats here, and truly the biggest barrier is the capital on chain or not, is your attention on chain or not, and the vast majority of it is just not right now, and so and I agree with that. I think like I had a good guide into the early art blocks ecosystem, who really made that point very clearly to me, which is the round peg, round hole argument. And I think it is incredibly compelling and probably will be more so in the future. That's why I'm a big squiggle guy. And yet I think like you also were sort of somebody who had to contend with like the inherent insanity of speculation and maybe the adverse dynamics that emerge from that. And it feels like everybody else is just speed running that, regardless of what you launch in crypto today.
Yeah, the speculative component was not on my bingo card. What was on my bingo card was that we would introduce some people to generative art, but more importantly, that some artists would have a new way to kind of release work in a way, that felt really native, not just to blockchain, but also to the generative medium, that exploded into this long form thing, mostly because of the demand, which is great. It really kind of pushed artists to create works that could demonstrate a tremendous amount of variety. But that was oftentimes based on the demand. The hard part was, the speculative side, balancing that with, oh shit, I created this thing that artists really want to use. And it turns out like people want to buy this thing, and having a 6-month waiting list of artists that have already been like assigned slots to release, and just kind of trying to manage that and weigh that against something that's kind of ending with the Art Blocks 500, which is this. It's not that it's ending, it's that Art Blocks 500 never gate kept. And so it's like, that purity to me is so important, that like we never actually gate kept anything. And at the same time, it's not functional for like super high drops unless you do things like a Dutch auction or an English auction. And then that leads to different kinds of speculation. And so the most beautiful part about Web3 is the open and permissionless nature, but that open and permissionless nature in the face of the speculation, in the face of kind of the attention spans and kind of the way that it also is like detracting from the original vision. And so, artists are allowed to allow list. I encourage artists to allow list, but like as a platform, it always felt really weird that I created this thing that's a round peg, round hole. And then now moving it over back to square peg, round hole. Like this is not what it was meant to do. And, here as we near the end of the Art Blocks 500, we as a platform will no longer kind of be in this place to be gatekeeping. And that to me is also really important. But, I want to
get into that, because I think this last drop is fascinating, and I think more people need to hear about it. And I'm sort of having flashbacks to the gas wars and the insanity in the early parts of the Art Blocks ecosystem, which I found weirdly compelling, frankly, even if I lost out on a lot of opportunity because of it. But there is sort of the thing that has captured my attention in a very similar-ish way has been the strategy tokens. They've obviously brought a whole new level of interest into the NFT space, driven by sort of, in part, I guess, a novel crypto mechanism, but then also, the speculative surface area that fungible tokens bring, and the clear demand for them. So I'm curious if you have thoughts on strategy coins and that mechanism.
Yeah, I mean, my take on strategy coins is it's a little bit different than my take on loaning and fractionalization, both of which, I guess all of which are financializing art, which is something that makes me generally pretty uncomfortable, right? Like I like the idea, like if someone takes a loan out on a squiggle, technically nerdily, I'm like, fuck yeah, this technology is awesome and it allows you to do that. And also like if it helps them financially, that's great. Now, a lot of this happens so that they can go leverage into some other crypto, and it's just like, gets pretty crazy. And it's just that's not how I operate. Like anything I've ever invested in, generally, I'd say 99% of things that I've purchased with the intent of making money have not, and most of them have gone to zero, right? So it's just not where my brain's at. Now, what makes strategy tokens different is this. First of all, it's reinforcing this concept that fees have a purpose, right? Like the fee on the strategy token is 10%. The royalty on art blocks is like 7.5% by the time you get the art blocks fee and like the artist fee. Now they're different. They get consumed and used in different ways, but objectively, artists that are still around are able to maintain kind of more attention and a higher value for their work than artists that kind of have disappeared. Platforms that are still around have objectively been able to maintain more attention and value for their work than the platforms that have disappeared. You want people around, and so you create an incentive for them to kind of stick around. And in this case, not only is the strategy, the token work strategy, taking a fee to add another incentive for people to participate, but also is taking 1% of it and giving it to the creator, which no other, I think I'm really excited. I think Gandhi is like at least making them optional, but before that, like none of the lending platforms were accounting for royalties in any way whatsoever. Obviously fractionalization, there was some pretty cool stuff that was done. I want to say that like Jeff Davis's portal was just rescued from a fractionalized protocol, and he was able to get some shards, almost like a royalty out of the fractionalization. I think that's pretty cool, but most of the things that happened fractionalization did not account for the creator, and in this case it accounts for the creator. And that's a first for me at this scale, like this level of support. I think we're at 50K has gone to the Node Foundation. We've got Squiggle DAO has been able to purchase 2 squiggles from the treasury, maybe a couple more as fees kind of keep churning. And I don't know, it just feels a little bit different. It also feels a little bit less square peg round hole than other things, but it's still financializing art, and it's still not something that I'm totally 100% excited.
Well, I've watched you dance that line quite a bit, because obviously you have it is important that there's capital flowing through these markets for all the reasons, frankly, and yet there's sort of a purity and like a if we look at the NFT season that kind of or gone through over the past couple of years, like that very few sort of sustained, and there is sort of almost like a values based judgment people make on what is going to sustain and exist into the future. And the more financialized something is, maybe the higher it goes and the quicker it comes back down. And so I've enjoyed watching how you sort of participate in the community. I've enjoyed watching how you've sort of navigated this speculation versus art dynamic. I'm sure it's one of those things that'll just continue to be I don't even want to say tightrope. I think it's sort of like a haze of some sort that you just kind of have to find your way through.
I wouldn't even call it a tightrope. Like in the traditional art world, people take loads on their art all the time. Like it's actually totally commonplace, right? It's not so transparent, which this is what's great about this technology. It's transparent. The navigating part is really also kind of coming to this realization, and I've been sharing this with my team lately. It's like, look, on the one hand, we don't have a growing collector base. It grew a little bit this year. I think we kind of brought some attention and some eyes, but it shrunk for 2 years. It shrunk down to like, I think at one point, if I had to guess, like 50 true like people that were collecting with passion for collecting, purely. And well, we're 5 years into this, and 99% of the people we're speaking to are fully crypto native people. Very few of them are true art collectors. I live for the art collectors more than anything, because that feels right. That feels good to me. But also, like, you can't be deaf. Like there's like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? Because like there's also this deafness. Like let's say that Squiggle strategy came out and I completely ignored it. I mean, there was already tweets the day before being like, Erick hasn't acknowledged this. Like you're like, the people that are participating in the strategies are also people that have supported art blocks, have supported other artists. They might be dabbling to different ranges in the speculative side, but they also show up to art events, and they also show up to everything, and they come to Marfa and they do these things. And so like at some point you got to like, it's a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but at the same time, it's the reality of where we are today. And this is a way that I felt that I could kind of dip my toes in the water and kind of play along with something that, makes me uncomfortable and is out of my comfort zone, but also is a round peg, round hole, and kind of celebrating my art in
Oh, for sure.
in
Yeah.
some weird
I mean,
tokenized
the,
way.
the fundamental nature of launching a token is you will be pulled out of your comfort zone. You don't
Yeah.
exactly know how or where or why or when, but it is definitely a thing. All right, I wanted to turn our attention to this last drop of it's. How do I pronounce this? Is it Quine?
Quine.
Quine.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Quine is I guess it is sort of like the penultimate drop on Artblocks Curated. It is a artwork created by the Larva Labs guys, who are obviously big inspirations to you, and I think kicked off the whole NFT wave with the launch of CryptoPunks. Can you maybe do a better job of setting the context than I have there on what this drop is and what it means?
Well, my gosh, yeah, Artblocks wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Larva Labs. The last 5 years have been absolute insanity. Like it has, and I think I do welcome people. A lot of people, like they're very sharp with their criticism and very sharp, but I just welcome people to just like, and put themselves in not just my shoes, like the team's shoes, the artist's shoes. Like it's been crazy. And I think it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, openings with the squiggle at Venus over Manhattan. And I can't remember the exact reason for this, but at some point I ended up on like what felt like a 1 hour walk down New York with Matt. And I felt like I had this moment where I was able, because I know what they went through, because I was in the Discord and I watched exactly what they went through. And I felt like it was this moment where I could share and I could be on the same page as someone that has had the same experience that I've had in terms of like the high points and the low points and the rage and the anger, but also like the celebration. And I don't know, it just like it felt really good. And I felt like there's not that many people in the world that can, because there's a certain amount of like plausible deniability that happens up until a certain point, and then at this point it's like, well, like I talked to Adam from TokenWorks and I'm just like, yeah, I mean at this point what you're getting yourself into. Like this isn't 2017 NFTs anymore, like I didn't think anybody was going to buy the squiggle or care about art blocks. And so that from that moment, I got to spend more time with Matt and John over the last few years, and I feel like it's one of the highlights of my last 5 years, because they are my heroes. They continue to be my heroes. I put a quote in an article the other day, like I have launched the squiggle, I have launched art blocks, and yet my profile still has a CryptoPunk and still is mentioning Larva Labs, right? Because people forget so quickly here. I've had people that 3 years ago DM me with the most wonderful, like, you have changed my life, thank you so much, blah blah blah, and then literally DM me 2 years later being like, you're a dick and you should be doing this, and it's like the same person, right? So like people forget, and I think that it felt really good to kind of be aligned with that, and kind of have that relationship, and that relationship kind of has evolved, and Artblocks has evolved. And Matt John said something really nice on a call on the RD show the other day. It's like that I feel like I have been trying to keep holding this up. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people, but it's hard to get out of bed and deal with all these things, and also push forward, and watching the number go down and watching the yelling go up. And I have to say that being able to, through all of this madness, be able to build a relationship with Matt and John, and then send them this text one day, like totally like zero, like just assuming a kind no thank you, saying, look, we're shutting down Curated, and we'd love to have you as be the last one. And they're like, yeah, we'd love to. And I was just like, I mean, I was on Sora 2 the other day trying to make videos of that moment, but like it made like spitting out coffee kind of moment, but instead of it like spraying it out, it looked like I was like throwing up coffee, so I never posted them. But that moment, I just remember getting that text and be like, holy shit. And I think that there's a lot there for that. It's huge pride moment for me. It's a huge pride moment for Art Blocks. It sounds, talking to them, that they're proud of it too. And I feel like this is a really special way to end the Curated collection. And regarding the art itself, I can't imagine a more perfect artwork. Like it is not intended to show you all the crazy things that you can do with pixels on a screen and like blow your mind with like generative. I love that kind of work, and I follow that kind of work, and I'm constantly blown away with what artists are doing. It feels like this perfect, simple, pure kind of next step from the autoglyph, the next step from, they did punks and then glyphs and then meebits, and that was like crazy. It feels like the next step in their kind of journey of, really, the more crazy things get, the more you realize that what really matters is being an artist, making art that makes people feel something. And to me, I can't imagine a better project to do it. It speaks so much on who they are, and it speaks so much on their brains and the nerdiness that it's going to be awesome. I hope I can pick up a few. I don't know. You never know with these auctions, and you never know kind of where things are. But I've pulled some ETH into a wallet to be able to pull it off. So we'll see.
Locked and loaded. Can you give us the nerdy take on it? Because there is some pretty interesting nerdy tech.
Yeah. So it's a piece of art that generates text, and that text that it generates is the code that generates the artwork. So when they first presented it to me, I thought it was really exciting and really fun, but then they highlighted the text on the artwork, because this is an SVG. So it's just like you're highlighting a Word document, but you're highlighting the text in the artwork, and you paste it into another box and press generate, and it regenerates the artwork. And this kind of synchronicity or parallel between, like, the visual, and usually there's actually a lot of projects that kind of like dabble with text and showing the code, and I actually am a huge fan of that kind of work too. So probably another reason why I'm really excited about the project. But oftentimes it's kind of unidirectional. I write a bunch of code, 35 lines of the main chunk of the Chromie Squiggle code, and you never see that. You just see the Chromie Squiggle. A lot of projects, they show the code, and they only show the code in really cool graphic ways, and that's awesome. But like, that's a totally different aesthetic. That's like pretty grungy kind of super nerd stuff, which I really like as well. And here they, like, if you don't look closely, you don't see the code. But if you look closely, you can absolutely see the code.
I wish I had a zoomed in version here, because you do, like, each one of those color blocks basically has a character in it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then there's thoughtfulness into the color palettes. They were on the call the other day. That's not something that they have done in the past, is like truly figure out a color palette. They had a chart for their color palettes that could have been an artwork in and of itself. And I feel like there's just, it's not trying to be something like, as an artist, you're always trying to one up yourself. And I think that's important, but in this case, it doesn't even feel like they're trying to one up. Like, this just feels like a really pure, clean piece, and it's going to be one that's going to look fantastic printed. I'm a huge digital art nerd. I only have 5 screens in my house. That's a lot of screens showing art. So you could probably feel the buzzing when you walk into my house. That's too many. And so, but I do love the digital stuff. So like, I have a balance of them, and I'm really excited not to add more screens to my house. And not all digital generative art looks good on paper. So also a really cool component of this is the fact that it's going to look really great printed, and that you can make diptychs and triptychs and quintics, whatever you call it, if you get the 2 coins, 3 coins, 5 coins.
I mean, so we have coin number 0 up here on the screen, which is sort of the example, I think, that people get to see probably when they hit the auction page right now. Auction goes live tomorrow at 12 Eastern time, right? That's the 9th. That is tomorrow, 12 Eastern time. And it'll be a Dutch auction and... No?
English auction.
English auction. God,
so it goes up. So it has a starting price, and then it goes up, and you set your bid, but it's a settlement auction. So whatever the lowest price is at the end of the auction is what everybody pays for. So and I know not everybody has the luxury to put in a high bid just to kind of forget about it, but you put in a bid, and everybody will pay the same. I encourage everyone to put in their bids early, and also like make a decision ahead of time how much they want to spend on it, and don't exceed that. I know it's hard to do that, and sometimes we attribute this to like crypto only, but there's like this car auction website called Bring a Trailer, where I've never actually bought a car, but I've tried, and I've definitely set a price at which I would pay for a car, and definitely gone way above it, and still lost the auction, thankfully, because I went way above it. It was like irrational. This isn't just in crypto. Like if people want something, they're going to bid on it.
That is one of my guilty pleasures, is messing around and bring a trailer. Like
It is like it's like my favorite website.
Oh my God,
honestly.
And yeah, I'm the guy who likes to talk tick too as well. So I would be the guy who would spend too much money on that thing. So that's why I haven't even signed up for it. I'm just the guy. Yeah, let me watch. I do have a 1990 F-150 4x4 that is in mint condition though, and so I like to go check out every once in a while and being like,
ooh, where are we at?
Where are we going here? You know, it's
that's cool. That's awesome.
Classic. Yeah, that's thank you to ENS for their airdrop. It is my ENS truck, baby. You love it.
Sweet.
All right, Eric, you've been super generous with your time here, so I'll let you get back to your day. But I'm very interested at some point in the future to kind of talk about what is next for Art Blocks and what is next for you.
I'd love that. I think that'd be great.
Let's keep today focused on tomorrow, because that is like a big, meaningful moment in your journey in the generative art on chain world. I have every expectation that this is just going to blow people away, and sort of the interest around this. Yeah, if you haven't been involved in an Art Blocks auction before, like, I just tune in. And it's maybe not going to be as crazy as watching it on chain in the early days when people were just like absurdly overbidding on gas to be able to win the gas war. But there's a really fun dynamic that these auctions have, and so much I think of the energy around even this artwork is kind of intertwined with that excitement and drama that goes into the launching up.
And it is fun to watch. I mean, the Art Blocks team has done a really good job of like making the auction page really beautiful, and like it just shows the next bids, and you can kind of see where people are at. It shows the bids that have been pushed away, but in the last couple hours of the auction, generally it gets a little bit nuts, and it's pretty fun to watch.
So tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern time, that kicks off. Eric, appreciate you hanging out. Look forward to chatting with you again, and good luck tomorrow. Hope you get your bids in.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for talking about this stuff. It's great, and I'm here for post 500 whenever you're ready.
All right, brother. We'll make it happen.
Thanks.
Cheers.